Tonight we have, what can you say in Chinese, une soirée poétique, following the instructions of Geoffrey Peek, on whom I shall be calling shortly to describe the events taking place tonight. You have been warned. But before we go any further, I'd just like to do a bit of advertising. In exactly 4 weeks' time, on March the 20th, 14, okay, we shall have a world premiere of a play called In the Middle of Nowhere, and it's going to be presented by, it's been written by Mr. Chris Hemmings. Why have you applauded?
I appreciate it.
I also noticed that there are one or two new countenances amongst us tonight. One or two old ones as well. Shut up, it's my bit. Right. And if you want to find out more about the village players and give your, what can I say, particulars, your coordinates, Chris is the person to whom they should be submitted. All right. In April, another play reading. It's a classic by Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, by the way, in case you didn't know, spent some time in Switzerland after being thrown out of England, and he lived in Glon. Did you know that? No. He lived for a short while in Glon, but as most people who lived in Glon will tell you, a short while is long enough. I used to work there. Okay, and then in May we have a stage production, which will not be here, but will be in the main auditorium. It's called Conversations, in which the ghost of John Betjeman meets the ghost of Philip Larkin, and they discuss their poetry, and they are aided and abetted by the inner spirits, which of course are women, because as you know, behind every great man there is...
And behind there is another.
I'll get you for this, Middleton, I shall get you for this. Okay. We've had some auditions for this production already, but there are more to come on March the 6th. There are 6 characters in it. Obviously Betjeman and Larkin have been played by men. The inner spirits have been played by women. And there are 2 reciters who could be either sex or both. So please come along to the, as I say, the auditions on March the 6th. That's about it. Apart from in June there is the Village Players' biggest production of the year. It's called the annual general meeting, but I won't bother with you. It's the way he's looking at it. I will not bother you with that. Over to Mr. Peek, who will explain why we're here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. John de Now, why are we here tonight? I thought you were going to tell me that, because you're the audience, and the audience always knows everything. But there's one thing on this huge, great list of poems that doesn't actually figure, because, as you can probably see, I got to the bottom of the paper without being able to add anything else. And those are 2 limericks that I actually promised Gordon, and I'm going to read them quickly. This is completely out of order, but never mind, too bad. The first one's called The Last Weekend. There was a young lady from Joppa who came a society cropper. She went to Ostend with a gentleman friend. The rest of the story is improper. And the second one, second of 2, the last of 2, is called... Well, we don't need a title, do we? So there was an old man of Darjeeling who travelled from London to Ealing. It said on the door, "Please don't spit on the floor." So he carefully spat on the ceiling. That is not on the programme, I'm sorry, but I had to add it because I saw Gordon there and I suddenly had a very bad conscience. And the question is, what is poetry? Well, don't look at me, I'm not going to answer the question. I ask the questions, I don't answer them. So it's up to you to decide what poetry is after you've heard everything this evening. And you're going to hear a lot of very different things. And I think this is a sort of microcosm of, well, it'd be very grand if I said microcosm of humanity, that would be going a bit too far, but it's a microcosm probably of what the village players people do. Because in fact there can be nothing more dramatic than a poem. A poem is very dramatic, it's just individual drama, at least individually expressed. So I want to just get on with things and introduce the first person, who's Mike Scott.
A window cleaner in our street who fell 5 stories at my feet impaled himself on my umbrella. I said, "Come, come, you careless fella. If my umbrella had been shut, you might have landed on my nut." The death of a fly. Fly, she saucy. Fly, fly down. Easy, fly, fly. Fly, water. Fly take big sip. Me take spoon. Fly look wrong way. Spoon go boom. Cup go wobble. Tea go splat. Fly get big fright. Fly get flat. Fly not fly now. Fly not sip. Fly just flied on. Final trip. Oh, please, Daddy, by Geoffrey Peek. Oh, please, Daddy. Won't you take me to the drive-in? All 6, 7 of us, 8, 9, 10. We want to see a flick and Tarzan of the 8 Man. And when the show's over, you can bring us back again. Popcorn, chewing gum, peanuts and bubble gum, ice cream, candy floss and Eskimo pie. Oh, Daddy, how we miss the bullseyes and licorice, Coca-Cola, ginger beer and Canada Dry. Oh, please, Daddy. Won't you take us to the fun fair? We want to have a ride on the bumper cars. We'll buy a stick of candy floss and eat it on the octopus. Then we'll take the rocket ship that goes to Mars. Oh, popcorn, chewing gum, peanuts and bubble gum, ice cream, candy floss and Eskimo pie. Oh, Daddy, how we missed the bullseyes and licorice, Coca-Cola, ginger beer and Canada Dry. Oh, please, Daddy. Won't you take us up to Durban? It's only 8 hours in the Chevrolet. There's bags of sea and sand and sun and fish in the aquarium. That's a lovely place for a holiday. Oh, please, Daddy, please. Get the hell out of it. The last poem is different. It's called Age. Death, though I see him not, is near, and grudges me my 80th year. Now I would give him all these last for one that 50 have run past. Ah, he strikes all things, all alike, but bargains, those he will not strike.
King's breakfast. The king asked the queen, and the queen asked the dairymaid, "Could we have some butter for the royal slice of bread?" The queen asked the dairymaid. The dairymaid said, "Certainly, I'll go and tell the cow now before she goes to bed." The dairymaid, she curtsied and went and told the Alderney, "Don't forget the butter for the royal slice of bread." The Alderney said sleepily, "You'd better tell His Majesty that many people nowadays like marmalade instead." The dairymaid said, "Fancy," and went to Her Majesty. She curtsied to the Queen, and she turned a little red. "Excuse me, Your Majesty, for taking of the liberty but marmalade is tasty if it's very thickly spread. The Queen said, "Oh," and went to His Majesty. Talking of the butter for the royal slice of bread, many people think that marmalade is nicer. Would you like to try a little marmalade instead? The King said, "Bother." And then he said, "Oh, dearie me." The King sobbed, "Oh, dearie me," and went back to bed. "Nobody," he whimpered, "could call me a fussy man. I only want a little bit of butter for my bread." The Queen said, "There, there," and went to the dairymaid. The dairymaid said, "There, there," and went to the shed. The cow said, "There, there, I didn't really mean it. Here's milk for his porringer and butter for his bread." The Queen took the butter and brought it to His Majesty. The King said, "Butter, eh?" and bounced out of bed. "Nobody," he said, as he kissed her tenderly. "Nobody," he said, as he slid down the banisters. "Nobody, my darling, could call me a fussy man, but I do like a little bit of butter on my bread."